can take you through it. I mean, I literally wasn't sure if you wanted to do that, so I'm going to be flying by the seat of my pants here a little bit. But what I'm going to do
No,
is
it's fine.
I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm just going to literally take you through a little bit of a sort of a planned uh, procedure to show you how the trust side of the system works. That's what I'm going to do right now. So I'm going to just share what you should be seeing now is my main desktop.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'll take you through it. I mean, this should probably take around about 30 minutes to the most. And I'll move quite quick. It's just an
It's
idea,
fine.
give you an idea of how it navigates. So this is our main desktop in OnVisual. And the way we work in OnVisual is we work by selecting an entity from our CRM system, and then we work on it. So an entity in our system is anything from a person, a company, a trust, a third party, an intermediary, all those sorts of things are what we call entities. And depending upon what modules you have, is what data you then add to that entity throughout the system. So if you're putting a trust into our system, you set up a trust, you give it basically the name of the trust, that becomes a trust entity. And as you're then operating on that trust, for example, you're basically designating who the beneficiaries are, who the settlers are, who the protectors are. Those are also entities in our system. So they need to be in the system as well. And what you do within those modules is you associate them or you relate them. You basically say, this person is a beneficiary of this trust. And that way, you can then relate all that information together very, very efficiently. So that if you're
Okay.
looking for things like compliance data, you're putting the compliance data in once for an entity, but it's then available across all of your entities when you're looking from a compliance reporting perspective. I'm also suffering from a little bit of a head cold, so you need to sort of bear with my voice a little bit. But
No,
that's the
it's
way
fine.
the system is basically structured. So what I'm going to show you here is I'm just going to, okay, at the top of my screen here, my main desktop, just divided into three pieces, probably best to sort of show you that first. I have got at the left-hand side, if I roll over my OnVisual logo there, and click on that, I see a main menu. That main menu is dynamic, and it will change depending upon the type of entity that I've chosen. It will also change depending upon what modules I have licensed. So we try and keep the system as clean and as clear as we can throughout the user experience with it. That's basically that's the way you operate on particular clients. You go into administration, you work on documents, those sorts of things. So you can access it from a main menu there. We also have at this side here is more like your user menu. So we've got a full task management system, which is part of the CRM. What I'll do also as I'm going through this, I'll highlight the modules that I'm talking about. So I'm going to confine this discussion pretty much to CRM and mainly CRM and administrator. I'll tell you when I'm touching on documents. I'll also
Okay.
show you very quickly some accounting. So I'll touch on that, but I'll make sure you're aware of it before I go into it. So the elements here of the task management, these are all tasks that are set up. Some of the tasks are created by the system, and they are things like you might be doing a scheduled a review of a client, scheduled distribution. Excuse me. So they're all things like tasks. It could be just reminding you to do something for a client. So they are basically part of your task scheduler. We've also got a communications database. So that's all about how you're communicating to your end user customers in relation to entities. So it could be recording a telephone conversation you've had, a meeting, recording emails to and from the system. If you're using the system to generate emails, which it can do, they'll automatically appear in your communications manager. But you can also drag emails in from Outlook and bring them into one area. So in one system, you can have all of your communications, including emails, meetings, conversations, and so forth, in relation to any of your entities on the system. So that's quite a
Okay, so
powerful tool.
you can send like a normal CRM, you can send emails via your CRM as well.
Yeah, yeah. So when you're putting in details, you put in things like all your email addresses, you're putting them in, and then you use a system to generate the emails. They will still go out through
Okay.
your email client, so you can still use all of your nice signatures and those sorts of things. But you can literally use the system to both generate it and then to record the fact that you sent it. So if within the communications manager, you can drill into a communication to see you sent an email to Brett Hall on the 3rd of August, and you'll see the details of that email, and you'll also have a link to the email. So you'll be able to click it and open up the email that you sent or the email that you received from the client. So there's hot linkages between the sort of Microsoft Office environment when you're doing all that.
Okay.
And the last one there is called My Air Portal Messages. So if you've got the Air Portal and your customers are sending you secure messages, that's where you'll see them appear. They appear in like an approval list, so that before any data goes into your system, you can verify it. You can make sure it's okay before you push it into your databases. So that's what that's what that is. Okay, that's pretty much it. With some other little tools down here, you can add your own shortcuts, which we can have a look at if we have some time. But they're just faster ways of getting to data, and these are just literally system tools, report libraries, import export functions, and setups and so forth. Okay, right here is my search, my global entity search, and in here I can either just look at entities that I'm looking at frequently. So if I've got a list of entities I'm frequently looking at there, they will appear in this list. It's almost like a little short list you can do there. You can also type in, as you start typing in, you'll see it'll actually find entries that match up. So I'm looking for something there called the Michelle Mackey Trust. It's found that, and I select that, and that's it. You can see the entity now has appeared on the top of the screen there. It's basically telling me that's the name of the entity, and it's a managed trust. So entity types in our system, there are system controlled entity types such as person, managed trust, managed company, foundation, partnership. But you can also add your own entity types in here as well. So that's just a way of categorizing. Okay, so it's a managed trust. Now that I have that entity chosen, I can very, very easily just go straight into my main menu. You might notice that menu's changed a little bit. I've now got something there called Trust Administration, which I didn't have before, because I've chosen a trust. If I had a company I'd chosen, I'd have Company Administration down there. So if I click on any of those, it'll take me directly to that part of the system. So if I click on my documents, it will take me directly into all the documents that I'm storing for that entity. So it's very much a select, push one button, and you're pretty much to the data that you need to get to in here. Okay, so there's that way of navigating. I'll show you something else too, which is a very, very popular way of navigating in our system, which is something we call flow paths. And flow paths are like a graphical flow path, graphical flowchart way of getting to various parts of the system, and they vary depending upon the type of entity that you've got. I'm just going to grab one here for my plus button, and I'll grab my flow path. And the flow path, and I'll just select that. Now, when the flow path opens up, okay, it'll open depending upon the type of entity that I've chosen here. Now, this is great when you're putting data in as well, because if you're creating a brand new trust, you'll have these tools appear for you. Some of them won't be there as yet, but you'll have a flow path of what you need to do. And each one of those, as you can see, they're hyperlinks. So I can click on those, and it will take me into the form to begin the data entry for a trust, for example, or a company. And it will take me through all the steps I need to do. Some of them are not mandatory, others are mandatory. But if I want to suddenly turn a trust into a customer they're going to bill, it's a button. If I want to go and maintain the trust itself, if the trust, in this case, the trust is already set up, so I'm going to use this for editing. But it's a lot easier to open this up and say, for example, I want to have a quickly maintain my trust details. So click on that, and that simply takes me into the central form where we maintain our trusts. Okay, so if I had been running a company, I'd have a different looking form because it'd be more the company form. So a lot of these forms you can get from those big top menus, but the flow paths are a lot more intuitive, I find anyway, in terms of getting through the system. And you open these forms up, and on the left-hand side are almost like, you can almost treat those as little sub-menus, depending upon the type of entity you've chosen. And you can just skip through them with your mouse and open them up. Okay, So if I click open my offices there for a trust, I'm going to get things like trustees, settlers, who my beneficiaries are. And clicking those will take me into those forms where I can actually maintain who all the beneficiaries are. So it's a very open, easy way of getting to data. And on the right-hand side, you tend to have more of the data entry. Of course, these forms can be resized. You can make that form as big as you need to make. I'm just trying to keep it in context with you down here. So these are the basic details for the trust that I have in front of me at the moment.
Okay.
We've got linkages through to the trust. I mentioned before about if you do have the documents module, you can have it. You can actually basically link the actual document into it, and you can very quickly get to the document just if you need to do it. It's very handy for doing things like I mentioned before about opening up emails, opening up source documents when you're in accounting, forms and documents when you're in areas like this. If you're in compliance and you want to look at some of the key ID documents behind people, you can basically create the links within there. So you can just open up the data form. I'll show you that in a moment, where you see things like driver's licenses, passport copies. You can just click on them and open up the form and see the source document, which is quite handy. There's a few different pages you've got there. You've got a details to page on there as well. Some of these fields are user definable. And then we have a key dates field across the top two. All of our entity types have key dates in them. These are basically system monitored dates, so that these are dates which are relevant to a trust. You can, when you fill in these in, I'm in the administrator module effectively now. In doing this, I'm actually administering a trust. I'm in the administration module. When I finish that work and I just sit in the CRM in the middle, I'll also see all these dates. So everything is centralized for you. So you can, I'll be maintaining dates in certain modules, but they're all visible within the main CRM date in the CRM area there. Okay. Yeah, I mean, also just while I'm in here, I'll just show you an example down here of, if I go into beneficiaries, for example, down there, and again, these forms are a little bit narrow. Just open us up a little bit. You can sort of start seeing where your beneficiaries are. And providing you've got the right levels of security, Nicolaas, you can basically, these buttons are all open to me at the moment, but you've got security which will control things like you might only have certain users which you want to be adding beneficiaries and editing beneficiaries. So you've got complete control over what the user's role enables them to do here. So I'm actually in an open system here.
Okay.
And you've got the history as well behind all of that as well. So if you're administering companies, you've got the same sort of thing with officers. You've got officer resolutions, officer sort of appointments, rotations, and so forth. So it's just slightly different when you look at the trust side of things.
Can you set date reminders on that where you were now? It's like for instance, a reminder to contact the co-trustees to perform a certain function, or to do a trust meeting, for instance.
Yep, a number of ways you can do that. The simplest way is to use the task scheduler. You just create a tasks, right? And that will then just come up and warn you on doing that. The other thing we've got in the system, which I'll show you in a second, is the system has an inbuilt alert system, which is constantly monitoring your data for anomalies or for things that are coming up. So I'll go into there in a second. But you can see there at the top of the screen where there's that red one. Yeah. That's telling me there's one alert running for that entity at the moment. Now, an alert could be a review which is approaching, and you can sort of say in the system that a review, I want to review this client every quarter, and I want the system to generate a reminder 90 days before that, or sorry, 30 days before that. So it will pop up as an alert 30 days beforehand until you've actually done that review. Passport expiries, driver's license expires, all those sorts of things that the alerts module can do for you. So there's a few ways you can do it. Just quickly, one thing I'll show you down here. So this flow path we looked at beforehand, we just went into there. Now, as you can see within that one section, I could do most of that editing. I could look at beneficiaries in there. There was also a button in there for distributions. You can also grab it from here too. So if you open this form up again and you click there, this is basically just a history of all your distributions. The way we've designed the trust administration to work on the system is that it can work with or without accounting. So if you don't want to use the accounting module, you don't have to, and you can still put distributions in here, and you can still put values in to the distributions themselves. If I, for example, that one there, that's a distribution for a particular beneficiary. So this is all the distributions for the trust, obviously, that I'm currently in. I'll just right click and I'll edit that. And you can see that in the distribution, you've got all the details behind the distribution. If there's a CRS or FATCA relevancy, that will be populated by the CRM, which is where that information is being stored. But that will come here as just as a reminder. And you've got a number of details in here which you put in anyway, regardless if you have accounting or not. So you've obviously got things like you've got the values of it, the currency of it, date it was requested. You can attach a document down here. If you've got the live file module where you can actually attach the source document. If it's, in this case, it's an ad hoc distribution as opposed to a scheduled distribution. It's ad hoc.
Okay.
Where was my source document? You can attach that down there. If I click that, would open up that particular document or an email that's come in for it. There's another tab there called account details. If I click on that, it goes in here, and you can see at the top side of it is still relevant because in our system, regardless if you have accounting or not, you can still set up bank accounts. But from here down is only relevant if you've got accounting. And when I save that, I can then confirm it, which is just another level of control, and then post it. Now, if I don't have accounting, posting just means you're locking it and saving it and saying, I've done, that distribution's been completed. If you've got accounting, it will pass the transaction right through to your accounting ledger for you. So that's the only real difference there.
Okay, so when you make mention of accounting, you make mention of a program like DraftWorks. Am I correct?
It's a full multi-currency general ledger system.
Okay. So if I don't have the accounting, if I don't have the accounting module, can I still do the distribution on the screen where we are now to allocate the payment going out?
You can, absolutely. You can put all those details in. Okay. The only thing you won't have is the accounting details behind it. If you're putting, as you're putting a record into an accounting system, you're recording two sides of the entry. So you can record the payment out and the distributions account. So, yes. And if you're then going to use something like DraftWorks to generate your final accounts, it needs to know those entries. Otherwise, it won't balance either. So if you don't have our accounting, you're still going to have to make some manual changes because it will only have one side of the entry. It'll only have this value of the distribution in there.
My other question is, if you don't have the document management module, you can't import documents into the system. Am I correct?
No. There's a couple of places where you can link them. But all those forms where I'm showing you those buttons, they're all coming from the document management module.
Okay.
I will show you a screen in a moment, which is just a front page of our CRM, and it has a carousel. And the carousel has got images that float around, and it's nice and graphical. You can put basic documents in there. Okay, you can stick just all it requires. If you've got live file, the document management system, it will show you live file documents. If you don't, you can point it just to another drive on your server with a document, and it will appear there as a document. So you can put documents in that way, but it's quite limited. You can't do a lot with it.
No, point taken. Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'm going to clear my screen just quickly now. Clearing it is just the home button up here. I clear that, takes me back to a nice clean screen. And what I'm going to do is just show you our client screen. So if I just use my main menu to do that, just for a bit of variety, and I'll click on clients that I was basically telling you about before. So this is like, if you like your front dashboard, if you like, just for the CRM system. There is information coming in here from other modules. So this is the carousel I was telling you about before. So if you've got live file documents, these will be live file documents. Okay, but you can add standard point click. This is a PDF file, and it's located on C:// You can do that with this particular section of the system there. Okay, up here is where we have the alerts. Remember, there's one alert for that entity at the moment. That's just a summary of what that alert is. You've got down here the key dates. So these have come through from the administrator module. Okay, you've got a whole range of notes. You can add as many notes as you want to a particular trust or an entity. All of them have got date and timestamps on them, but you can add as many, and they're big note fields behind there. So they're great for sort of adding just general file notes in there. All my bank accounts that I'm currently using in there at the moment. And again, I don't have to have accounting to do this. If I have accounting, the accounting will take that and say, okay, that's an HSBC bank account, a pound sterling bank account. What is my ledger account that you want to allocate that to? So you just point the two and link the two together when you have accounting. So that's quite straightforward. Okay. From within here, what I'm going to do very quickly is show you something which is quite important to the system. It's called relationships. And I mentioned before about how we relate entities together in our system. And from just my client menu there, I've got a little menu there called relationships. I'll just click that. Okay. And this will show me I'm still within that one trust that we chose initially. And these are all the relationships that are current for that particular entity down there. Now, some of those have been generated by the system. So if I go into the system where you looked at that screen before, where we saw all the beneficiaries, and I press the Add Beneficiary button, when I do that, it would create a relationship in the background for me. So it maintains a lot of these relationships for you. They're all my beneficiaries that we looked at before. And I've also got the means within this is all still within the CRM. I can also, just using my right mouse button, I can actually show that as an organization chart. So I can just quickly click on that, because very quickly you can start to see your relationships shown graphically. So if you've got things like trusts with underlying companies with offices, is providing they're an entity on a system and they are related, they can be shown here dynamically. So this is just works purely on relationships. And I'm just going to do this. So I'm just going to go backwards one screen. Peter Allgood down there. So again, that's the same. We just looked at that in the chart, in the organization chart. And I'm going to go and switch to that entity here. I'm now looking at Peter Allgood at the top here. So I've now gone from trust to a beneficiary of the trust. Okay, but the same tools are available to me. So I can go into here and I can go into my client menu, and it'll be slightly different because I'm now looking at a person. So I've now got things like driver's license, I've got passport copies, utility bills, those sorts of things available to me here. The rules are a little bit different. I've got down here, see down here in my alerts, I've got passport expiries coming up. I've got a compliance document review, which has expired. So those are different sort of things you'd expect to see from a person. Okay. Up here, I've got things, I've got risk ratings. I've got main sort of key things that you want to normally look at very quickly, passport dates, passport expiries, and so forth, without having to drill too far into it. Okay. I will show you the flow path very quickly because I do like to use it. So the flow path's different now because it's now being done for a person. Okay, so you've got slightly different options down here. But down here I can look at, for example, compliance details. This is again for a person. So this is the sort of details you can store for a person down here. So there's a lot of information you can store from a compliance perspective.
Can you alter the
Yep, go ahead.
Can you alter the fields when it comes to client details or not? The field headings.
Some you can. Some are user definable. Most of the ones we're looking at here are system fields, though, so they are fixed. What would you change?
Okay, I haven't seen all your fields, but I'm going to give you examples. So if I create a trust on the CRM, I would need to say the registered name for the trust, at which master's office the trust are registered, the trading name of the trust, the registration number of the trust, the registration date of the trust type, the number of trustees, the number of sponsors, number of impartial trustees, and so the list goes on. Who the accountant are, does the trust need to be audited, accounting notes, for instance. So I'm just giving you a few of the examples.
Yep. So I'm going to go back to a trust for that. I'm going to go back to a trust, and I'm
sorry
going to. No, not at all. No, that's not a problem. That's why it's good to do these things interactively, because you've got if you're just running through a pre-programmed demo, you may not get that. You see, so that's So essentially, when we're talking about things like sponsors and you've got multiple parties, we would do those as relationships. So we would so you basically set up as many of those as you need to do that. But in terms of those fixed details you mentioned before, so there would be fields in here. Now, some of these fields are definable. So you've got down here, for example, trust types. In the main CRM area, every entity is assigned to an office. So you mentioned before about being assigned to a registered office. That's where you would assign that. It would be a case of just going through down there. Now, if you find there are certain fields which you need to get, we will probably work with you in terms of just configuring them so those fields will be there for you, help you through that. So these are sort of some of the sample ones down here. You've got lots of notes down here. You've got lots of note fields as well. While I'm here, very quickly, because I didn't do it beforehand, this is still, we've gone back to the trust now. We've gone back to this Michelle Mackey Trust. And I have got accounting loaded. So if I go into here, click financials, takes me into the nominal ledger by default, the general ledger for the trust. Multiple currency, multiple period, many periods as you want. And you've got the ability to, I've just got different views of the account. I'll start with a trial balance. These are all my main accounts. You click on those accounts down here. And you can see down here, for example, these are your distributions that have come through from the distribution side of the administrator we had a look at. They've been posted through from there. So they get posted through as a journal, as you can see down there.
Yes.
But it's a fully blown multi-currency GL. So it's the bare bones of the accounting. So this is sort of what we call the accounting basics. So it's a multi-entity, multi-ledger accounting system, which is linked obviously to the entity. Later on, you can then look at things like asset modules and those sorts of things, which you can add on to this. But this is sort of the basic element of it. By sub-account, there's my distribution account, and there's all my distributions that have come through for the particular period. And you can go and edit those. You can attach documents to those. All these grids, you can basically drag and drop straight into Excel. All the grids that you see on visual can be dragged into Excel very, very easily. We've also got the ability to generate P&L and balance sheets directly from it as well. So you can, now these are actually customizable as well, but you can sort of start to see the valuations from these reports here. But balance sheet, profit and loss statements. These are shortcut reports. There's a reporting module up there which has got a lot more reports that you can launch for it, but these are sort of very quick shortcut reports that people tend to use down here, very quick trial balance reports. So that's how the accounting works. So again, if you don't have accounting, it's not the end of the world. You can still process those distributions, and you can still confirm them, and you can still save them and complete them. They just don't go anywhere after that. I think probably the entity I had before was a little bit better from the documents. So I was going to show you the documents real quick. So just I'll go back to that. I'm sorry to jump around between entities because I was just I really wanted just to focus on those two there. But
No,
this
it's
is
fine.
back to that person. That's this person entity here. And main menu, documents, the entity itself that's been stored. So every document that I've got in my live file document management system for that entity are visible just by pressing that documents button. So if I'm now doing a search, if I'm trying to find something, initially, that's my search field there. I'll be searching on what's currently selected in my filters here. So it's already selected the entity up there for me. So I'm going to be doing a search for that entity down there. If I clear that out, and I'll clear it just by clicking it, I won't do it just yet, but if I click that entity button, I'll clear that field out. I'll be looking at every entity, every document that I have security to look at, and I can then search on that. So it's a very powerful system for finding things that may have been filed incorrectly. It's traditionally people would keep documents in folders and subfolders. And you can still do that with our system, but our system sort of looks around the outside of all that and enables you to search across folders very, very easily. And the way it does that is that when you're putting documents in, you can put them in just by literally scanning them in. You can drag them, drop them in here. You can sit in things like Outlook, and you can press. We have an on-visual toolbar that sits inside Outlook that you can click, and it'll enable you to save the email and any attachments in one hit directly through to your live file system. So there's a number of ways of getting documents in, but when they're going in, the system does its best to automatically index it for you. So you can see there it generates a thumbnail for you over here of the file to make it easier to recognize something. But underneath, down the bottom of the screen there, you can see this thing called summary. And that is basically the document summary that the system builds on its own. And it OCRs the documents. And OCRs it into a very, very efficient text file that goes into the database. So when you're doing your searching, it's going to work a lot like Google in terms of it's got its own algorithm, and it will look for things like file names, and it will prioritize high-level descriptions, but it will also go right through the content. So you might have, it's great for compliance because you may have a particular entity that is mentioned in page 45 of an agreement that may not be relevant at the moment to the entity at all. So it's just the name of a company. In 2 years' time, you may need to find every document in your system that mentions that company. Because they may not necessarily be an entity searches are not going to do it. Folder searches aren't going to do it. But if you've got context text-based searching, which this has, it will scoot right through there and find things. So it's a very, very powerful way we've actually built it. We build it more from a compliance perspective than anything else. But you can sort of type in very, very basic things like search on that. Okay, it's found one record. And you can see when it's found, highlighted the record it's found, it's only searching within this entity. You can see down there that it will actually highlight why it's found it. If I, for example, I'm just going to clear that entity out now, clear that out. Okay, so it's now doing a driver's license search across multiple entities, so it's got a couple there. But if I change that and say, okay, it's going to go and find all my resolution documents. So there's going to be a lot of them. These are all the entities, yeah, and these are all different types of resolutions that the system has generated. These are MEMS and arts if you're doing company administration, that sort of thing. So very handy, all in one spot. If you do go down the route in the future and look at the portal product to distribute these documents to your clients, all you basically do, there's a flag when you go into that document, there's a flag to say share it with the portal. And if you share it with the portal, it will make that document, which is linked to that entity, available in the portal. So when your user logs in, Mr. X logs into your portal, he's one of your customers, he has got 0 Zuck delimit as one of his entities, that document will be available to him to see, but no one else to see. So that's the way we do the linkages.
If I'm on your website now, so the modules which you've shown me now is the company trust administration and the document management. Am I correct?
I showed you 3 modules today. I showed you the CRM.
So, okay, the CRM as well.
Yep. So when we looked at, to try and make it relatable, this main menu here, when I went into clients, I was going into CRM.
Yeah.
And when I had the trust opened, there was another module there called trust administration.
Yes.
That was our trust. That was our administrator module.
Okay,
and then we
so
looked at documents. So they're the three. Yep.
So the clients and are uploaded on the CRM module, and the emails are sent via the CRM module. Am I correct?
Correct. It's a fully integrated system, though. So CRM is the heart of the system. It's where what you're looking at right down here, where I'm putting in all these details. I'm putting all my communication. I'm putting in all my email addresses that go into the CRM. But certain information from other modules will be surfaceable in the CRM. As an example of that, any power of attorneys that have been registered in the administrator module will be visible here. Any key dates which are coming through for the administrator module will be visible in the key dates module, key date tab. So it's very tightly integrated. You know, you can generate documents in this system which will pull numbers out of the billing system, because we've got a billing module which is an integrated part of the system.
Okay.
But to try and keep it really, really simple, it's the standard stuff really is from that module there, CRM and documents and administrator. Accounting was something I just showed you a glimpse of. I don't really want to divert your attention to accounting just yet, because you were talking about mainly about administrating trusts.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the accounting module at the moment. So my need at this point is the CRM, the company and trust administration, and possibly the document management.
Now, the administrator module, don't forget, will also administer partnerships, companies, foundations. Okay, so it's not just trusts.
No, I know. Yes. Okay. All right. Sorry, do you have... Yeah. So that is basically my need at the moment.
Sure.
If you can just send me a mail on a breakdown of the costs.
Yep, I'll do that. What I'll do is I'll send you a link to this recording of this meeting as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I would ask you to keep that in strict confidence, because I don't like that sort of thing going in front of our competitors.
I know that the idea is not to share with the sort of competitors, because then I'm not competitive anymore. So yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thanks for your time. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Enjoy your day.
Okay. Bye now. You too.
Bye.